Hello, it's Mike Rasmussen, CPA Straight Talk for Small Business. Today is Friday, August 7th, and as anticipated, I was hoping to have a ton of great news for you. But if I was to actually go to all of the posts right now of what's happening in Washington, D.C., what was supposed to happen and what is happening right now is is decision, and what you have is President Trump waiting for Stephen Mnuchin and the Republicans and Democrats to give proposals on the CARES 2.0, primarily centered around the federal unemployment pandemic $600 a week. So nothing has been decided. Now, what has been decided is nothing has been decided. So what you have is a lot of bickering going back and forth right now. There's no conclusion. And so President Trump right now at a little after 2 o'clock Eastern time is really working on what are his options on doing executive actions to either do something so that would basically make the leaders, Mnuchin and Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer, all the leaders, to come up with a proposal next week so that everybody can vote. So there was supposed to be something in writing today in concept. So it's either going to be a proposal and written up, which is either being written up right now, or President Trump is going to do some sort of executive order. So I am just sorry to say there is really nothing at this point, and we're just going to have to wait till Monday. So, but one of the items that is obviously always being considered was also this, and I'm going to show this to you. Let me show you my screen, and I'll show you what I'm talking about. I'm going to get just a little detailed for you on a Friday afternoon, but let me do this. Okay, now, as always, we talk about the SBA program, the Paycheck Protection Program. It is still out there till tomorrow night. Just so you know, it's August 7th, so tomorrow night expires, meaning that's the application that you would actually go apply for a PPP loan. And what this CARES Act 2.0, that what's being considered right now is going to be is one of the items that is additional expansion of this program. So we're going to see what that's supposed to look like. But this program right now is going to expire. And then what we're going to have is either we're going to have a new modification to that. Okay. Then as you can see right here, the EIDL, which is the Economic Injury Disaster Loan, is still available. I looked and you could still apply here. And that is again, the 30-year 3.75%, and you start payments in a year. Okay, so you can still do that today, and you can still apply for the SBA. Okay, that's really what is out there. The rest is how all the programs are going to pan out. Everything that has been proposed, I'm not even going to get into the most of them, but let me take you to. I want to walk you through one of the areas, which was the expenses on your Paycheck Protection Program. Are they taxable or not? And how is that going to work? So I'm just going to walk you through. Here is a seminar that I attended. I'm just going to briefly go through with the quick law. So here is the tax consequences of the PPP. Okay, so amounts which have been forgiven under the section of the CARES Act. So this is also buried in what's happening today. So I get to kind of look to see if this ever gets addressed by tonight, this weekend, whatever. But of the PPP, what was hoping for, and I'll show you. So the amounts forgiven under section 1106 will be considered canceled indebtedness by a lender authorized under section 7A of the Small Business Act. Not trying to be detailed for you for a Friday afternoon. And then the code, which basically the Internal Revenue Code, said any amount that would be otherwise be includable in gross income by reason of loan forgiveness shall be excludable from gross income. The CARES Act was silent on the deductibility of the expenses paid with the forgiven loan proceeds. So let me just show you a QuickBooks file of how that works. So right now, what I have done here is this other, I did a sample here of, and we received 51,600 of a PPP loan in this sample, in this example, and that's reported right here. Now also in just normal operations, we spent 48,000 on PPP gross wages, insurance premiums, retirement match, SUDA. So for all intents and purposes, for the either 8-week or the 24-week, when this PPP sample company is going for loan forgiveness, this for the monies, the 51,600, there was some other here of $15, but 51,600 was actually spent on correctly wages, and then a little bit on insurance premiums, match. These are all items that were forgivable. And so the whole 51,600 should be forgiven. Now, properly reported in a PPP sample entity, this 51,000 is not income, and that should be excluded. Also, if I do that, right now the way the CARES Act is that would also mean you exclude the expenses where you spent the money. So I would take out the 51,000, I would take out the expenses right here. And so this number, the 53,000 net income number for the year for PPP sample, if I excluded the income and I excluded the expenses, which is the way it's supposed to be based on the law, which is what it's excluded, the CARES Act was silent on deductibility of the expenses paid with the forgiven loan proceeds. So the way I did the expenses there is we showed the income, showed the expenses. If I take away the income, I got to take away the expenses. What's possibly being proposed right now is to leave in the expenses, okay? So that was where in the seminar that we just did by Thomson Reuters here is that no deduction is allowed to a taxpayer for any amount otherwise liable to such which is to one or more class of income exempt from taxes. So the purpose of this was to prevent double tax benefit, as you can understand. What one of the actually proposals that's in legislation right now, and then here's the actual law. Let me go a little bit farther down, okay? And here it is, there was actually a notice to this extent that this notice 2020 came out right around April when this was, when there was actually the idea was floated, and the IRS really came out there quickly and said they disallow any otherwise allowable deduction under this code sections for any payment of eligible expense to the extent the resulting covered loan forgiveness up to the aggregate amount because of such payment is allocable to taxes and income. So what that is saying is that if this amount, the PPP loan of 51,600 is not included here, I cannot include these expenses. That's all that this is. If the government goes back on that, and that's what's being partly proposed, just really small in there. I'm trying to find something for you in there, but if these amounts, these expenses where you spent your PPP money are allowed to be deducted, then what's going to happen is this 53,000 in my example is going to be reduced by the 51,600. So what would happen is if the expenses are allowed, here's what actually would happen. I would, as an accountant, we would go in and we would change the entry, and I would go in right here and I would reduce, and I would go down to where I have here it in as far as income. I would just take this out of income, and I would take this out of the PPP loan that I booked. I put 0 and 0 then what would happen is you would see the profit and loss that I had. As we refresh it right here, it would be not included in income. I would retain the expenses, and you see how the net income dropped. So if based on if this notice, per notice 2020-32 from the IRS that did an interpretation of the CARES Act, which is an SBA. So the CARES Act was law from the SBA. This is law from the IRS. The two are, the IRS was interpreting what was proposed and actually in law for the CARES Act. I know it's kind of sounds like two, but this is the Internal Revenue Code, and this was actually a law from the CARES Act. Okay, so all that the IRS was jumped in front and said, if the loan forgiveness is treated as tax exempt income, then the IRS is going to disallow any expenses that those monies were spent on. Okay, what is being proposed possibly, and what's being proposed is possibly to have those deductions, those expenses deducted as well. So there you go. That was just and of course, when you roll it there, if you're reducing this amount, then if you look at the tax return that I would eventually file in 2020 for the PPP sample that we did, what would happen here is it would be, just kind of show you let's just say that I had the income right now was 22, I think it was 35. And I'm just doing a real brief, super brief right now for you. But if you go in here and you look at a corp, if the income, which was from right here, was 2265, okay, let's go back to the tax return, and I have 2235. So that would generate a tax here on if you were a C Corp, of $469, which is basically the 15% of that. So that's all that here's the tax, and this entity would owe tax on the 2235. If that 2235 was, or it's actually 2265, so 2265, if I then, it would be 53,865. If the way it is right now, this number would be 53,865, which would mean that would be the PPP loan is excluded from income, but you also don't get the expenses. If you want to go look at the 1120 now, that it jumps up that tax from what we had for a little over $400 to 11,000. Huge difference. So that is really why what is being there is, and it's why the IRS, it's really to their favor. They jumped in and said, no, this is just how it works. So this is varied. What I'm talking to you about was the taxability of the loan forgiveness from the CARES Act as far as what's called deductible expenses. If it's possible, if it is possible that that amount could actually, the expenses could be deductible, it is a huge win and a win, meaning very favorable to taxpayers and when they're filing their tax returns when you're going for loan forgiveness. Okay, so there it is. One little bit after, and I'm checking other, there's nothing, I'm looking on the other screen for executive actions. I don't see it from the president, but this little piece here was something that was potentially out there that might be buried in the revise what's going on right now. It's kind of like they call them little bones, or in addition, if like the Republicans or the Senate in their proposed new CARES 2.0 is going to have a reduction in the PPP or reduction in the pandemic, the federal unemployment from 600 down to 400, 200, whatever the amount. There might be something like this that is strewn in there, buried in all the detail. It's all the detail that's being negotiated right now. So behind closed doors, how this is happening is you have, okay, if you want this, I get this. If you have this, I get that. What I'm showing you right here is one of those, well, then okay, then we're going to allow all the expenses on the PPP. We're going to, if you want that, we're going to throw this in. So I'm just throwing it out there. Right now, it's clear under IRS Notice 2020-32, but this is, so in concept, this is what is one of the things that they could be arguing for, that's on the table, that could be considered and say, well, if you keep the $600 federal unemployment and extend that to December, we're going to want something else. We're going to want this, for example. I'll show you the other, and then the other one is out that we're obviously looking for right now is the Senate Bill 4117 that we've been referring to over the past couple of weeks. Let me just bring that up for you. I'll show you where that is, and that is right here. Let me bring that up a little bit. That is where if your PPP loan is below $150,000, to provide automatic forgiveness for paycheck protection loans under $150,000 for other purposes, then you would not, it would be completely forgiven with just some certifications being, did you spend the money? You didn't spend it on anything crazy. You were in business at February 15, 2020, and you would have to certify, but you would be automatically forgiven. Again, that's another one that it's probably a whole laundry list. Seeing that there's been no actions on it, or no, it wasn't even considered and right today, but it could be behind closed door. This could be another one that could happen right now. So bottom line is, I wish I had more to tell you. I'm gonna watch this all weekend. You know, of all the 50 sites I go to, they're all having their own little comment of it right now. So I would say stay tuned. Monday is going to be another just a result from all weekend long. So by the time I do this with you on Monday, we will have known if President Trump did some executive actions since the Senate Republicans and the Senate, they could not agree on a bill. And the reason why the House is involved with Nancy Pelosi is because they actually proposed a bill back in May that is just not being it's not that it's not being considered, but that was the 3.1 million that now is up to, and they proposed a HEROES Act, and now the HEALS Act, which is what the Senate is modifying, and those two are fighting being they're disagreeing on what should be in those for the next stimulus to help the economy. So bottom line, President Trump is looking to possibly do an executive action because these two can't agree. That's where we're at right now. Monday is going to be next Monday, which would be 7, 8, 9, 10, which would be August 10th, you can expect. So at this point until, and again, what I look for is when it goes into law or it actually goes into a vote. So even in concept, if they agree, then in concept, next week they would have to vote on what was agreed to in concept today if President Trump didn't do an executive action today, executive order. If you're totally confused, I'm with you. It has been just a roller coaster day. I just wish I had more. What I attempted to do was to show you a couple of the, what if you will, bargaining chips that have been floating out there, and there's many, many more. There's a whole laundry list of them. That's just how the process works. Okay, so if you want, basically in the negotiation, you want the $600 unemployment, you know, the federal unemployment to go from 600 or stay or extend it, you're going to have to give me X. And you know what? It's only hurting all the unemployed. It's hurting all of us when you do last minute decisions like this. You've probably heard, and what happens is that I was just showing you a little example, but there's probably hundreds of these little bills that have been submitted or wants and desires. And so what happens behind the scenes is they're all labeled by again, Senate Bill 4117. If you want this one, we want Senate Bill 4117. Okay, great. We want that in there. And it is just a leveling that comes out. In the end, when this act gets voted on, there's, just like we did on the CARES Act, on March 27th, Congress, it will go into congress.gov, and we're able to all read it. And the public we're all exposed to what actually was signed into law. And then we go into us as CPAs and advisors, we all then will take that and then start dissecting it. Well, what did they mean here? What did they mean here? So all of this happening right now is really nothing to hang your hat on. It's only guesswork. And so until we actually get a act, which was like the CARES Act, until we actually get one and we're able to pull it apart, there's nothing to really react on. And I simply wanted to kind of point a couple things. So you can expect all next week is for us to pick apart whatever they're voting on. Because right now, what's important is to get people in your business. Are you keeping a diary of how you're impacted by the pandemic? Have you applied for your Paycheck Protection Program, which expires tomorrow? Have you applied for your EIDL loan, which is still available out there online? And I helped a person do it yesterday. Actually, if he receives it, he could be a $150,000 loan for all three entities that he did. Now, how are we going to spend that? That's still coming out as well, but at least he would have that in reserve. Have you done those three things? Have you at least do you have your business plan together? Have you done a tentative calculation of your loan forgiveness? Have you put that together yet? Have you notified your bank that you spent the money properly? Have you then, some of the things we've been talking, have you actually talked to your CPAs and kept them advised of how you've spent the money, the loans that you've received? What's a new business model based on the pandemic? What are you going to do depend on what happens if all of a sudden the unemployment is extended? If it's not extended, have you talked to all of your ex-employees that are on unemployment and go, I can bring you back because you've redone your business model? Have you done all that? And I know you're listening, you're like, well, that's why I listen to you to help me do it. But bottom line, when you're going to need to react. So have some of this thought out. So when you start hearing what happened with this new act, whatever they're going to call it, they're going to call it the HEALS Act or whatever they're going to call it from the Senate, and whatever gets finally inked in for another act based on what's going on in the economy right now, I can guarantee you one thing: there's going to be certifications on how you implement any programs that are additionally going to be offered. Additional stimulus. There's going to be one of the certifications that we've been doing. There's going to be a certification that says, did your business potentially go down this quarter, reduce in gross receipts by 50% from this quarter to last quarter in 2019? So get your books up. If you don't have them all, get current through as quick as you can through July 31st. Get them done and be ready. Really be on alert next week and be ready on how this new act is going to impact you and your small business. If I act like a sense of urgency, I'm only saying it needs to just be top of mind, because then you can sit and react when you start seeing all the internet and everybody going, here's what you should do, here's what happened, here's my interpretation, how we should handle this whole thing. You simply go, pick up the phone and go, you've already had this thought out. Pick it up with your CPA advisor as soon as it comes out and go, what went into law and how does it impact me? That's what I'm leaving on. Okay. I hope you have a great weekend. It's been a wild week, and I appreciate you joining in every day. It's Mike Rasmussen, CPA Straight Talk for Small Business on August 7th. Have a great weekend.